This week, I want to share a few thoughts to follow up on Sunday's sermon, this time looking at King David. King David is one of the most well-known people in the Bible. A huge section of the Bible is devoted to events that occurred during his reign, and one of the most interesting ones is actually a disease outbreak that hits during his later years as king. David had a brief period of disobedience to God, and God responds by sending a plague over the land after giving David a few options to choose from. Over the course of just a few days, 70,000 people died from this disease. And as the angel bringing this disease approaches Jerusalem, it stops by a farm. David sees this, somehow, and asks God to relent and instead direct his anger to David alone, rather than the people of Israel, since David had been the one to commit the wrong. God then sends the prophet Gad to David with some instructions for how to proceed, and a very interesting scene plays out. 2 Samuel 24, verses 18 through 25. And Gad came that day to David, and said to him, Go up, raise an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up at Gad's word, as the Lord commanded. And when Araunah looked down, he saw the king and his servants coming toward him. And Araunah went out and paid homage to the king with his face to the ground. And Araunah said, Why has my lord the king come to his servant? David said, To buy the threshing floor from you, in order to build an altar to the Lord, that the plague may be averted from the people. Then Araunah said to David, Let my lord the king take and offer up what seems good to him. Here are the oxen for the burnt offering, and the threshing sledges and the yokes of the oxen for the wood. All this, O king, Araunah gives to the king. And Araunah said to the king, May the Lord your God accept you. But the king said to Araunah, No, but I will buy it from you for a price. I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor and the oxen for 50 shekels of silver. And David built there an altar to the Lord, and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings. So the Lord responded to the plea for the land, and the plague was averted from Israel. David is instructed to build an altar at this site, and the owner of the land is more than happy to give his king everything needed, both the land and the animals, for the sacrifice. But David says no. I will not offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God that cost me nothing. It's such a powerful line, because David knows something very important. Offerings we give to God have meaning because they are something that have value to us. Some leftover scraps that we don't really want, some unwanted gift we received that we're looking to pawn off, something we stole or cheated to acquire. These are offerings that don't actually cost us anything. They're not coming from the heart. We're just giving it to God so we can get it out of the way, or even worse, maybe to put on a show of being generous so other people will applaud us. But David knows the most important thing isn't the value of the offering, but rather the heart behind it. We see this mindset reflected in one of the lines he wrote in Psalm 51, verses 16 through 17. For you will not delight in sacrifice, or I would give it. You will not be pleased with a burnt offering. The sacrifices of God are a broken spirit. A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. It's not about the monetary value of the sacrifice, but rather the heart behind it. Too often, the offerings people bring to church are just their unwanted leftovers. Church closets are filled with various items donated by people just looking for a place to dump their unwanted junk. You'll also run into people who only give donations when they can get some kind of public recognition for it. Get their names on the side of buildings, or get some other special accolade. These offerings aren't coming from a love of God as much as they're coming from a love of self. So what makes a good offering? A good offering is, first of all, willingly given, as well as cheerfully given. It's something you feel will have value to God because it has value to you. Maybe it's money, but maybe it's also time, or useful items, such as food for the hungry or clothes for the poor. It's also important that the offering not be done for attention or recognition or with the goal of getting something in return. And if you feel that's a temptation of yours, it might help to give your offering anonymously, so only God knows about it. Lastly, remember that we're not giving to God because we want Him to give us something. We're giving back because we've already received. We're acknowledging that God is the source of everything we have, and by giving to God out of our blessing, we're giving Him honor and glory. We're declaring to all the people around us that God is the one sustaining and providing for us, both during the good times and the hard times. And David's offering here had a major impact, not just for the plague, but also for the future of God's people, because that farm David bought was eventually the site that was used to build the Temple of Jerusalem, which was the center of worship all the way up to the time of Jesus and even after. So let's not bring meaningless offerings. We'll give the best we have to God and watch as He makes something even better out of it.